Okay. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry for all these little technical glitches, but we're together now, so that's great. I'm Carol Kando-Pineda. I'm an attorney with the Federal Trade Commission. I've been with the agency quite a long time, almost 3 decades now. Starting out as a practicing lawyer, then as a congressional liaison, and now I work in our shop that takes the lessons that we learned from some of those investigations and turns them into practical tips and messages for consumers. So today, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the most prevalent scams we're seeing now that are relating to the coronavirus. Imposter scams are the biggest thing that we see now, but scammers follow the headlines. The twist that we're seeing, they're always going to look for that hook that's going to be able to suck people in more effectively. And right now, that always revolves around the coronavirus. So we'll cover some of those today and some of the common elements you need to look for. As these scams evolve, you'll find there are certain things that scams have in common that if you have those red flags, you'll be able to warn patrons and friends, family, your community. The first thing I wanted to start out with was just to give you the reference to our website for librarians, ftc.gov/libraries. It's basically a portal for librarians where we've curated our most popular campaigns, probably the most useful information for the most amount of people, and it's organized by audience. So there were some repeats in different categories, but if you serve an older population, if you serve a younger population, if you serve military families, if you want to look up something that applies to somebody that's a victim of identity theft, there are things in there for you curated so that you have an idea of what to provide for them, where to get that information from the FTC on one of our sites. And then there are some programming ideas, both to be able to put together programming about those kinds of consumer issues or for those audiences about as consumers, and also to incorporate into existing programming you have. Sometimes it's just as effective to be able to include handing out a brochure or a few little messages about a particular consumer topic while you're programming about other things. And then everything I'm talking about today, including our coronavirus information, is available through ftc.gov/libraries. We have a button at the top of the page that'll take you to our coronavirus scam information. And so this is just a reminder to let people know kind of in general, over the course of all kinds of scams and as they evolve, scammers follow the headlines. They're very professional. They know what they're doing. They always look for a pressure point or a pain point or some big emotion that they can stir up. And they try to create that sense of urgency, a sense of fear, a sense that you need to act immediately or something really dreadful or dire is going to happen to you or to somebody you love or to your finances. And so that's why they take such advantage when there's confusion in the air in any situation, whether it's a natural disaster or say with the economic crisis we had in 2008, scammers came out of the woodwork to try to take advantage of people's vulnerability because they had lost their income, they had lost their homes, and we're seeing the same sorts of things now. So the scams change, but if you have that underlying knowledge, it's a little easier to spot and to be able to warn people. And if you do happen to encounter these kinds of scams, we really want to hear from you. If you can file a report with ftc.gov/complaint, that goes into a secure online database, and it's available only to law enforcement so that they can build cases from it and maybe consult each other and see if other jurisdictions are seeing similar types of scams or crimes and perhaps collaborate together to stop them. So they're really helpful for that law enforcement angle, and they're also very helpful to my shop because it helps us see where the trends are and where a scam is evolving, and maybe helps us get a website, a blog post, an article, a video, something out there to warn people before we're actually able to get the case signed, sealed, delivered, and ready. So sometimes it's a nice canary in the coal mine for us to be able to put out consumer education material for people. Okay, so let's talk a little bit
Can I interrupt? You're going to need
Sure.
to let me know when to change your slide.
I'm sorry.
So,
yes, that's exactly right.
Are we on your next slide, or should I be advancing?
Yes, go to ftc.gov/libraries is the next slide.
Okay.
And then I just finished the third slide, and now we're on the fourth.
All right.
And it should be a graphic that says coronavirus scams.
All right. Yes. Yeah, I realize that you can't see what I'm doing, and I can't see what you're
and that's
intending.
my fault.
Technology,
yeah,
it's great.
Okay. So you'll see at the bottom of this little graphic here, ftc.gov/coronavirus. So that's our portal for all information about coronavirus scams. There's even a daily toll that we put together, how many complaints we've gotten since January 1st. I didn't have a chance to look at the numbers today, but I believe it was up to about 32,000 complaints that we've gotten in just this short period of time, which is quite a bit about one thing. And then the loss was like $95 million already. So that's why we're trying to get ahead of this as much as we can. FTC is trying to bring some cases, but those things take a little bit of time. So it's always a little bit better if we can help prevent people from losing money than trying to get it back for them afterwards. Next slide. Okay, so the main category of scams, and sort of the most dangerous ones, I think, are the treatment cures. And it's the kinds of things that you would expect. Vaccine offers, test kits, some kind of miracle cure. Even people are saying imposters are calling people and saying that they're from Medicare, and that because you're a Medicare recipient, you've been selected for a special offering, the first wave of testing, or there's a special cure that's being given out, and it's especially for people that are older or whatever. They pick whatever parameters to emphasize, and you can get this right away. So just give me this information and we'll set up an appointment for you, that kind of thing. So at this point, we can easily say none of these things are true, none of these things are legitimate, and you can just hang up. If you get a call from somebody that's offering you this, hang up. If you get an email or a text, you can delete. There's no vaccine that's readily available right now. That's all still in development. There clearly are test kits, but they're kind of hard to come by, and you have to go to a legitimate hospital clinic situation to be able to get those kinds of kits. There are no kits that are going to be mailed to you at home that you're going to be able to do that are worth anything, that are effective or legitimate. Same thing with miracle cures. There's always that strain of scammer that when there's some sort of an illness or, I shouldn't even say that. It doesn't even have to come up and follow the headlines. Scammers are always out there trying to hawk whatever, oils, foods, supplements, creams, jewelry, shoes, belts, all kinds of things that they say are going to cure diabetes, cure cancer, cure Alzheimer's, other forms of dementia. You name the serious condition, there's somebody out there selling some sort of fake product that's going to prey on people's emotions and on their fear, and sometimes on their desperation. So that's how people get sucked into those kinds of things, when they feel like they're at the end of the line and there's nothing else for them to try. But all they're going to do is lose their money and possibly give up personal information to a scammer. So those are sort of the easy ones where we know we can tell people this is a scam, hang up. Just for now, there's nothing that's going to do that for you. Next slide. So probably the majority of these kinds of scams are the approach to the consumer is going to be through a robocall. Again, people will get texts, they'll get emails, but the vast majority is through these robocalls. And I'm sure everybody understands that. Everybody's gotten thousands and thousands of these things. And now they're focusing on, coronavirus. So as we talked about, we're getting a lot of the health-related calls, cures, prevention, test kits, those kinds of things. Particularly with the cures, one thing I meant to say was, if there is suddenly a cure for coronavirus, we wouldn't hear about it through an email or a text or somebody trying to sell you something on a robocall. It would be on every major news organization, every legitimate site. You'd be able to go to the CDC or NIH and get information about that if it was true and it was legitimate. It's not going to come through this kind of a come-on. And sometimes it's necessary. I tell you that. And I keep saying you, this is going to help you, but really it's shorthand for your patrons, your community, the people that you're interacting with. Sometimes you need to be able to remind people they're so desperate for that positive information or something they think that is going to help. They're willing to sort of suspend their disbelief a little bit. And sometimes you have to point that out to people, like, wouldn't we have heard about this somebody calling you and offering to sell you this thing? That's not the way to determine whether there's a legitimate cure out there. So the other kinds of scams relate to cleaning supplies, as you would imagine, like Clorox wipes, disinfectants, Lysol, those kind of disinfectant kinds of things that they'll either, they can get them for you, they can get them at a better price, you can buy more of them, and very often you just send your money and you get nothing in return. Social Security scams, that's an imposter scam. We don't have time to go into a lot of depth about that right now, but just briefly, that was the #1 imposter scam for the last few years. For a long time, it was IRS imposters, where the people would call pretending to be from the IRS and call to threaten you and say that you owe back we're from the IRS, you owe back taxes. If you don't pay this right away, we're going to, 1, send a sheriff, 2, put a lien on your house, 3, you're going to be arrested. All manner of, we're going to take your driver's license away. All manner of bad things are threatened if you don't get them money right away. Eventually enough people knew about it, and we were able to let people know that this scam was going on, and IRS worked really hard to get in front of it. And it's still out there, but people are a little bit more aware of it. They're a little bit more willing to just hang up. Now it's calls from the Social Security Administration allegedly saying your Social Security number has been compromised, your Social Security number is about to be taken off the master list, it's about to be invalidated, there's a problem with your Social Security number, you need to call right away, pay us this fee and we'll clean it up, you need to pay to have this done, you need to pay to have that done. Anything they can do to get you to send them some form of payment, to either steal the money from you and sometimes even to take your personal information as well. It's still a very big scam, but now, as I said, things evolve with the headlines, and now they're starting to claim that because of the coronavirus, offices are shut, you're going to lose the Social Security benefits you have if you don't get back to them right away, and then they get you on the phone and try to get money from you to fix a problem with your Social Security number. But they're using coronavirus as the hook to scare you to call them. That because nobody, things change so rapidly, and something that seemed like it was fine in the morning, maybe different in the afternoon or different the next day or later in the week. And so there is some confusion, and not everybody has heard of every little twist and everything that's happening. So that's that sweet spot for them to be able to get in and try to create that confusion. And that's when they're most effective at scamming people, because people don't really know what's up. And if they get, they hit that pressure point on them, they're more likely to release money to them. Mortgage relief scams are very similar to the scams that we saw during the financial crisis. Obviously, people are having a very difficult time paying bills, and a mortgage might be among the things that they're having trouble with. So these companies come out of the woodwork and say, hey, we'll negotiate a good deal for you. We can guarantee that you won't have to pay your mortgage for 6 months. We can guarantee a lower payment. We can guarantee forbearance. We can guarantee whatever. And, you know, there may be companies out there that are able to do that, but there are a lot more scammy companies that are out there just to take people's money. So there is a federal law that says you do not have to pay. If you decide to go with one of these companies to help you negotiate something with a lender or a servicer, then you do not have to pay them a cent until they have contacted your lender, gotten some kind of an offer for repayment that's detailed, and you have reviewed it and accepted it, okay? And then if you're happy with it, you can pay them and then implement the plan. If not, you can say no and walk away. The other thing that we would suggest is that if you do decide to go with a company to try to help you out to negotiate that, once they present you with a deal that's from the mortgage servicer or lender, you want to call that servicer or lender yourself directly and confirm that that really is a legitimate plan, that this company called on your behalf and negotiated all of that to be sure that it's real, so that you don't just stop making your payments, or that you make a payment that's maybe lower than what it would have been otherwise, and you ruin your credit that way, and possibly, you know, lose your home. So we tell people, if they're having trouble paying their mortgage, I've got a blog post about that, which I forgot to put the link in for a couple of these things, and I'm happy to assemble these links and send them to you later so you have them. I just did a blog post about mortgage relief that's out there so that you don't fall prey to scammers. And there are some programs. Every state has got some kind of program out there, maybe not necessarily for mortgages, but for your autos and student loans and things like that. And that would be usa.gov/local-governments. And I'll send you that so that you have it. That gives you the link to every state website, and you can go on there and look around for South Carolina and see what's offered for people as some help for mortgage payments. Number one, if they've got a federal mortgage, there's already automatically some forbearance allowed for them. It doesn't happen automatically. They have to still apply for it. They still have to call their lender and ask, but we suggest doing that anyway. If you're having a hard time paying because of coronavirus, call the lender, ask what forbearance programs are in place, ask if you can negotiate to modify the mortgage. People are very willing and open right now to do those things, so it's well worth it for people to do it, and to do it soon. Don't wait, especially if you think, well, we'll wait and see if we're going to have trouble, although you can see trouble coming down the pike. You want them to do it right away, because that's when you're most likely to be able to work something out and then rest easy for a little while that it's taken care of. Student loan debt relief, it's the same thing. There are companies that are out there that'll say they'll help you consolidate a loan to get a lower payment. Sometimes they say they know somebody at the Department of Education and they can get you into a special program that exists. Sometimes these programs do exist, but they don't really know anybody. They're just sort of saying they do. And sometimes they're just they're making it up. There are no programs at all. They're just saying that to get you to give them the money. And I would strongly suggest that for anybody that's got a federal student loan, go to studentaid.gov/coronavirus, and I'll send you this. There is automatic forbearance on federal student loans through September 30th, but it would be a good time to call, to call and confirm and find out the lay of the land, or if there's any other programs that a patron qualifies for, or something else that they might be able to do to help out with the payments, especially if there's going to be long-term job loss or long-term financial hardship. They may want to be thinking beyond September for how they're going to deal with either putting off those payments or reducing them or just managing that. So we see more and more of these things every day. It changes all the time. And the way we hear about a lot of them is through people like you reporting to ftc.gov/complaint. Okay, next slide, please. So I just wanted to touch very briefly on the fact that FTC is doing a little bit of law enforcement now. It's sort of getting up to speed on some of these scams. The FTC and the FDA have sent warning letters to the makers of these products I was referring to before: teas, essential oils, and colloidal silver, which is silver suspended in this liquid that people will try to hawk their products and say this is going to help your immunity or prevent you from contracting coronavirus. And colloidal silver is actually quite dangerous. If you do ingest it, it can turn your skin a gray blue, and that's a permanent side effect. It's something that doesn't go away once it's out of your system. So that's kind of important to warn against those kind of products. And so the crux of this is that these companies did not have any evidence to back up those claims. That's part of the law. If you're going to make a claim, especially scientific, or your product is going to do certain specific things, particularly related to health and disease, you have to have the science to back it up. And this was just not there. And so very often a first step for the FTC is to send a warning letter to the company and say, hey, these claims do not look right. They don't look like there's, we don't know of any evidence that would back these up. You really need to stop making these complaints. And a lot of the time, the company stops making the complaints or stop making the claims. They modify their advertising and their marketing a little bit, and they come more into compliance, right? So that they're not hooking as many people because they're not making these wild, outrageous claims that get everybody's attention. Sometimes the stuff that they're saying is bad enough that the FDA will go after them and try to get them off shelves. And that's why FTC and FDA will send these the joint warning letters together. And so I think we're up to now, FTC and FDA have sent 27 of these letters. FTC has sent 10 on their own for things that just we had jurisdiction over, FDA didn't. And the FTC and the FCC sent 13 warning letters to telephone providers for voice over the internet protocol. That's very often used in perpetrating scams because you can spoof caller ID. It's a way that robocallers and scammers can hide a little bit from law enforcement. And these companies were put on notice that their services were being used to perpetrate these scams, and they needed to do a better job of trying to clean that up. So, and that's the first time that we've done that, but we're seeing an awful lot of that right now. So in total, we've sent about 50 of these warning letters, and some of these things might eventually end up as part of cases, and sometimes the companies just stop selling the product altogether. Sometimes they just modify their claims. Another thing to know is that FTC just brought a case. They just announced it. It was either this morning or yesterday at a company that was promising to help people process their SBA loans to get the stimulus relief that was headed for small businesses. And as you know, it was first come, first served, and the money ran out. And there were a number of companies, a number of small businesses that applied using these companies, and their chances just went out the window. The company never filed the paperwork. So they took the business's money, they didn't file the paperwork, and these people lost out on their chance at that stimulus money right now. So, and for some businesses, that could be a matter of survival, because even though additional small business stimulus money will be coming, it might not get to them in time, right? So there is a significant damage there to small businesses, and we're trying to act on this stuff as fast as we can. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is really just to give you an idea of some of the companies, some of the products. This is just a small fraction from the warning letters. Next slide. Okay, so here is a fake email that purports to be from the World Health Organization, and they're asking you to go through a document and look at these safety measures, or they're asking you to look at something. So you think, oh, I wonder what this is all about. The World Health Organization, that's a legitimate thing. You're going to open it up and look at it. So we're telling you these kinds of phishing emails that are looking to get your information, hooking you in through something that looks like a legitimate inquiry or a legitimate request or legitimate information for you to get. we're going to see more and more of those. Some of them are going to say World Health Organization or something similar to NIH, or maybe even the FTC. Very often the FTC gets spoofed, or robocallers will pretend they're from the FTC and that we're calling to give you some special information. But you just have to pay the fees in order to get the money that we've gotten back for you. Always a scam. So the phishing emails, texts, things like this, they're just trying to get your money. If they can get an account and get money from you right away, terrific. If they can get you to send some form of untraceable payment, that's what they want, or just to get your information to commit identity theft. And then sometimes they want to link you, they want you to click on a link that's going to take you to a site that loads malware onto your computer, and they can steal all that information without ever interacting with you again. You would never know. It's not like somebody asked for your account number or said that you needed to send them a gift card to pay them for something. The malware will just, look around on your computer and steal that information, and you wouldn't know it. So you really just want to be careful about when you get these kinds of texts and emails. If it's something that you're not sure if it's legitimate, call the company, call the organization, call whoever at a number that you know is legitimate and you can confirm. But most of the time you can just delete. Next slide. So just another word about the malicious websites. So we're starting to see that there are a lot of domains now that include the word coronavirus. And so it's a little hard to, it causes that confusion that I've referenced before, because all the government sites, we've been told to coordinate so that every government agency that has coronavirus information is using /coronavirus as the extension to get that information. So you'll see that with irs.gov/coronavirus, sec.gov/coronavirus, ftc.gov/coronavirus. So you want to stick with sites that you know that are legitimate and that you've trusted, that you've used before. That's where you want to get your information from, and you certainly don't want to click a link from someplace that you don't necessarily recognize. Just because it has coronavirus in it doesn't mean it's going to give you anything useful. Next slide. Okay, so the stimulus checks. The thing we want to communicate to people the most about these is that the government is not going to ask you to pay upfront to get your money, right? So nobody's going to call you or text you or email you and say, your file is incomplete, we need this one bit of information. Before we can release your check, we need an account number, we need you to give us your social security number, we need your credit card number, we need you to wire us money to be able to pay the fees or the taxes on your stimulus check. Nobody's going to ask you to send that money up front. Nobody's going to ask you for that kind of personal information. If somebody calls you and tells you that and asks for that, it's automatically a scam. You can tell people they can just hang up. It's not going to affect their stimulus check. The government just does not do that. Next slide. Okay, so oh, you know what? Let me just say one more thing about the stimulus checks. So I think by now everybody probably knows, there are certain income parameters, certain limits in order to get your check. And that if you go to irs.gov/coronavirus, if you're a taxpayer, then you're going to get that stimulus check in whatever way IRS usually sends you your refund, probably direct deposit, but whatever way you get it, that's how you're going to get your stimulus check. But if you don't file taxes, go to irs.gov/coronavirus, and that's there's like a non-filer status where you can check to see what you might need to follow up and do. And that's the only place where you should go to submit information and to try to track down your stimulus check. Go to irs.gov/coronavirus. Okay, so now charity scams. So whenever there is a change in the headlines, these are the scammers that truly, truly follow the headlines. If there's a California wildfire, there'll be wildfire charities that spring up. There'll be charities that sound or look alike other legitimate charities, like, trying to think of one that would sound like Red Cross. You know, the Red Cross and something else they might add, or they might use the logo that looks like the Red Cross, or that looks like a charity that you're familiar with. And I should make the distinction now while we're talking about this. You know, there are going to be your regular charities that, you know, that we know and that you deal with, and maybe not hugely well known, but they're trusted to you and you've given in the past, and you like the charity and you're comfortable with them. They may ramp up, or they may focus a little bit more on the particular situation that's at hand, whether it's, say, to help people with the financial implications of coronavirus, or to help people who have been displaced from a tornado or a hurricane, or things like that. Then there are the companies or the charities that spring up overnight. They're created overnight to help somebody, or to help a group of people in response to this, to a tragedy or something. And they're not necessarily scams, but they're not necessarily well-organized, experienced charities either, right? They don't necessarily really know how to get the money to the people that you want to help. You're donating to them to help certain people, certain communities. They may not be as organized. They may not know what to do with the money that comes at them. They may not, it just may not be the most effective use of your money. And it's hard to tell because they don't have a track record, right? So that's always something to keep in mind when somebody's asking, you know, should I donate to this? You really need to do research on that and try to find out as much as you can about it, if it's legitimate, and if they have some idea, you know, why donate a truckload of food or enough money to buy a truckload of food to somebody that doesn't know how to get it to the people that need it. And then there are just the out and out scams, the charities that use phony names or sound alike names. They use, we see this an awful lot in the military space, where there are charities that pop up all the time using veterans, service member, military family, something in there, because there are a lot of people that want to support the troops. And if this charity pops up in relation to something that's affecting the troops at that particular moment, it's going to grab your attention, and people are going to want to give to it right away. It can be very compelling. But again, the research is what's going to tell you whether that's really where you want your money to go. You know, you want to be able to help the people you want to help, and not just toss it off necessarily to somebody that sounds good, but maybe isn't so great. So some of the questions that people would want to ask, you know, you want to research that charity. And if you go to ftc.gov/charity, we have got some of those links to, like, GuideStar and Charity Navigator, give.org, those kind of sites, so that it's one place you can go to get somebody started on their research. When they actually start to research the charities, they want to find out how much goes to that individual charity, right? Some of these groups actually do ratings, so you can look up the ratings and see what the reports are. You can always put into your favorite search engine the name of the charity and the word complaints, and see what comes up. There'll always be a few that are super, super positive. There are always going to be some that are super, super negative, and then there's going to be a lot in the middle. And so you go through a few screens and evaluate all of those to get a sense of what other people are saying about this charity. It's not the be-all and end-all. I mean, there are a lot of scams that can fool people, especially at the beginning of the curve before people realize it. And so you might, there might be an awful lot of positive reports at first, but it's a data point. It's something to remember along with your other research. See what else is going on, see what else is happening, what other people are saying. And then never, 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 never do you want to make a charitable donation by gift card or wire transfer, because those are the most prevalent ways that we see scammers asking you to pay for things, and they're untraceable. So it's very, very difficult to get your money back. Next slide. So another, we put together these questions just from some of our digital literacy work and some of the the work we've done in terms of trying to get people to evaluate messages they see in ads a little more carefully. And really, what are these things that you should be asking yourself? Who is the message from? What do they want me to do? And what is the evidence behind this message, right? So that sort of gets at the idea that, you know, does somebody have a dog in this fight? Are they trying to convince you of something because they're trying to sell you something? Are they just trying to persuade you about something? What do they want you to do? Do they want you to spend money? Do they want you to send a gift card? Do they want you to wire money? They want you to do some of these suspect things. And then what's the evidence, right? Because that's how we evaluate a lot of the health cures and things like that. Is there evidence behind what they say that makes sense? A good starting place in this space right now that we're talking about cures and treatments and coronavirus is usa.gov/coronavirus. From there, you can link to CDC, NIH, and some of the other federal agencies that are doing the science behind coronavirus, and you can get started there and then branch out to look at whatever research you want to look at. Okay, next slide. Oh yeah, so again, we've talked a little bit about some of the common elements to some of these scams. Just to reiterate, the scammer is going to try to use emotion to create a sense of panic, a sense of fear, that pit in your gut that something is really wrong, and which is why people don't want to hang up, because what if this is real? What if so-and-so is in trouble? What if, you know, somebody needs this? What if my family member needs this? So they create that sense of fear. Then they create the urgency on top of that. Like, you need to do something right away. They don't want to get you off the phone. They want you to make a commitment to send them the money. Sometimes with, and some of you may have seen this in your library, sometimes, especially with an older consumer, they will get them on the phone and kind of badger them to believe what it is that they're saying and to persuade them that they need to do whatever it is that the scammer is saying. And then they'll tell them, you need to go to the Walmart right now and buy this gift card. And, you know, this will help save whoever, or this will get you this, or this will solve this problem, whatever it is. And some that we've heard from both librarians who have seen this, who have witnessed it. The person is still on the phone with the scammer trying to get some information, or they're at the Walmart or at a CVS trying to purchase the gift card, and the cashier overhears the conversation and sort of tries to get the person to take a step back, take a deep breath, and tries to convince them not to do it. And so it's very effective for people that are dealing with the public. If you know about these things, you may be able to talk to somebody and help them reason through that this isn't something that they want to do and save them money. And we're not talking about a $50 gift card. I mean, sometimes scammers have managed to convince people to buy $5,000 worth of gift cards or $10,000 worth of gift cards. And then the minute they're bought, they go into the parking lot, they scratch off all the PIN numbers and read off the PIN numbers to the scammers. And then the scammer has the value of that gift card. It's gone. The card you hold in your hand is useless. And they can go and sell those gift card numbers again on the black market or however they make money off of them. But it's really difficult to get your money back. We do have on our site, ftc.gov/gift cards. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there is a list of all the major gift card issuers, especially those that are having trouble with this kind of scam happening. And we suggest that people not just report it to us, but report it to the gift card issuer so they know what's happening with their cards. And if you can report it fast enough, sometimes you can even get a little bit of the money back. It's a long shot, especially these days now where everything's pretty tight. But it's always worth a try to ask, especially if it's happened quickly. I mean, somebody, I think, I heard a story about one consumer who realized they had made a mistake, and they were with a cashier who was trying to help them, and they called right away, and they managed to get a little bit of money back on the gift card. So again, forewarned is forearmed. Next slide. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this already, dealing with some of the financial implications of the pandemic with your mortgage and your student loan. I would also say the same thing with auto loans. I would, if somebody comes to you and they're looking for information for some help, I would tell them automatically to call their lender, and the sooner the better. Don't wait till you're, in so much trouble that you haven't made a payment in 6 months or 3 months. If you can see there's trouble coming and it's going to be hard for you to balance it, tell them to go ahead and call and try to work something out. People are much more open to that now than they were in the past. People want to beware of offers for payday loans. They're not always called payday loans. Sometimes online it's just called fast cash or fast money or a quick loan, things like that. Sometimes people don't have any other choice. I understand that. But what people need to understand is payday loans are extremely expensive, and they get you into that hole where if you don't pay it back right away, there's so much interest added on. You're so much further in the hole within 3 months. You're just in so much worse trouble than if you had just tried to borrow the money from someplace else, if you're able. And so we'd like people to try to think about where else they might be able to get the money before they sort of resort to that payday loan kind of situation. The same thing with the car title loan. If they have to really weigh whether it's worth it to them, there's a very strong possibility that they could lose title to their car just to borrow a small amount of money to get them to do something else. There might be other ways. There might be other banks or credit unions that are willing to loan the money, or even family might be able to, rather than lose the car and end up in greater trouble. I think that's it. I've got, as I said, I've got lists of some of the blog posts that we've done about the financial implications that I'm happy to share. People are probably hearing from more debt collectors now because things are starting to kick in, and not everybody realizes that they have rights as it comes to debt collection. So, debt collectors can't call you before 8 o'clock in the morning and after, I think it's 9 o'clock at night, but there are time limits. They can't harass, swear, curse, threaten you, threaten to have you arrested, those kinds of things. And it might even be worth it for you to talk to the debt collector once, just to see if it's really your debt, if you recognize it and what exactly they're saying that you owe on it. Sometimes a call from a debt collector can be a sign of identity theft. Maybe it isn't your debt, but it's being reported as your debt. And so it's always worth it to double check just to be sure. But you can also tell the debt collector in writing you don't want them to call you anymore. And they have to stop. If you send them that notice in writing, they have to stop calling you. So it doesn't mean you still owe the debt, right? You still have to pay it back, but you don't have to put up with getting phone calls from a debt collector every day. Anyway, there's lots of rights as it comes to debt collection, and we listed some of the most important ones in a blog post that would be helpful for you to see. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just to let you know, if you're interested in automatically getting the blog posts as we put them out, you can sign up for them, or they're called consumer alerts at that point. You can go to ftc.gov/subscribe, sign up for them, get the blog posts. If it ends up it's not your thing, you can just go back to ftc.subscribe and get off the list. If you encounter scams or something that seems kind of questionable, go to ftc.gov/complaint. It's not like that nobody opens a file and nobody's going to get back to you or anything, but like I said, it's helpful for us to see what people are seeing out there, and sometimes it forms the basis of cases. For the latest on coronavirus, there are some helpful government sites, coronavirus.gov, ftc.gov/coronavirus, and then usa.gov/coronavirus. That usa.gov link gets you to the scientific agencies. Next slide. Okay, and then you can follow us on social media. Feel free to take whatever materials we have on our website, on our blogs, on our social media. They're free, they're freely available. We also have a lot of videos on our various websites that you can see at ftc.gov/libraries, especially about scam-related topics. And sometimes those are pretty helpful to put out on your social media. They get a good amount of attention. And so those are our social media accounts. Next slide. So we did this one infographic, keep calm and avoid coronavirus scams. And it lists the 5 things to know. I know it's kind of small, but it talks about, you know, ignore the offers for home tests, hang up on Robo Calls, be aware that if you don't recognize an email, that it could be a phishing email or a phishing text, and to donate carefully and to kind of stay in the know. And the information I just shared with you about getting our consumer updates. So this is available for you to share at our ftc.gov/coronavirus site. If you go to that link, click on the link to scam information, and then on that page, a little further down, there's that graphic that you can just, I think you can just copy it and save it, and you can put that out on your social networks or in a newsletter, however you're staying in touch with patrons. And there's another little infographic that we did called FTC Scam Bingo. So this was kind of fun. I know some places are putting it out and kind of issuing a challenge, giving people 3 days to see what kinds of scam-related things that they're seeing. You check it off, and once you actually get them all lined up in a row, you got bingo. And you can tweet it out at hashtag FTC Scam Bingo and tag us. We'd love to see it if anybody is actually playing Scam Bingo. And okay, next slide. Just wanted to reiterate ftc.gov/libraries. That's our main curated site for the librarians. And you should be able to get to everything that we talked about today through ftc.gov/libraries. If not, the URLs that I mentioned will take you there directly as well. And then I'll put together a list of some of the URLs I mentioned that didn't make it into the slides. Next slide. And that's it. That's the end of the formal presentation, but I'm happy to take questions from anybody.
We do have a question.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We do have a question in chat. Since libraries are closed at the moment, do you have any suggestions for getting the information out to the public that might be having, seeing these things? What do you find is most effective?
So I don't know that I can address which is most effective. I'd have to defer to other librarians about that. But I have heard, depending on the size of the library and where they're at, librarians are doing different things to keep their patrons informed. So I think some are actually keeping some of the, like we have a lot of print information. And the reason I didn't post that is that we had to close down our warehouse operation because there was no way to social distance there. But some people have stores of our pubs and they just leave them like outside for people to come by and grab and go, right? If you wanted to leave print information. I think some that have active social media communities and networks are putting the stuff out over social media, just breaking stuff down into small tips, which is actually what I do. I take a lot of our longer information and I just pull out short tips and then put it out over our social media. And then some libraries have places where they can update their website on a regular basis. They just put links to things on their website to link out to FTC resources or other government resources, or if they have a blog. If the library itself has a blog on its site, they'll just do blog posts about it.
I've been hearing from some libraries that they're ramping up a little bit on communicating not online, like newsletters, postcards, that sort of thing, for those patrons that don't have internet access at this time, because we do have a fairly significant digital divide, especially here in our more rural areas. I have heard both things. I've heard some of the librarians, especially in that serve a population that's really accustomed to webinars and Zoom and that sort of stuff. They're using Facebook Live, Instagram Live
and for people that have Zoom to do programming that way. But a good old-fashioned newsletter is often a great way to go, because if you can get people to sign up and you know where to mail it, or to pick it up, like I said, grab and go, it gets them the same information, right? And that's why I would suggest looking around at ftc.gov/libraries, because even if we don't have a print copy of something, you can click on the link and look at the content and pull some out and put it into a newsletter. Some of the stuff you may already have some of the publications if you're familiar with FTC.
Okay. What other questions do we have? Would anybody else like to feel free to type in chat, or you can unmute yourself at this point and go ahead and speak up if you have further questions. I'm not seeing anybody jumping in just yet. We do have the presenter's contact information here, and we are recording this, so I'll post that recording probably within just a few days.
Great.
Any other last minute questions, anybody? Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here. And